What if Marineford was never about saving Ace in the first place? What if the one kneeling on that execution platform was Monkey D. Luffy, the boy who burned the flag at Enies Lobby, punched a celestial dragon, and declared war on the world far too early? If the Marines ever caught him alive before the time skip, they wouldn't hide him in some prison cell. They'd drag him into the light, put him in chains, and make an example out of him. So in this timeline, everything changes at Sabaody. Kuma still appears, the pacifistas still close in, and the Straw Hats still start vanishing one by one. But before Kuma can touch Luffy, Kizaru flashes in. A pacifista pins him down, and sea-stone cuffs lock around his wrists. The Son of Dragon is captured alive, and the world government announces a public execution at Marineford. Ace hears the news and goes straight to Whitebeard. Whitebeard hears one thing only: Ace's brother is family, and if the world wants to kill one of his own in front of everyone, then the world is getting a war. I found 3 ways this story could continue. In the first theory, Luffy's execution destroys Marineford on the same day. The war begins with the same terrifying scale as the original. Whitebeard's fleet erupts from beneath the sea. The admirals hold the line, and Garp stands beneath the platform looking like a man already being torn in half. Above him is Luffy, bloodied, chained, and yelling across the battlefield that he's still going to become Pirate King. Ace tears through the front lines like wildfire. Marco dives in from above. Whitebeard starts cracking the sea itself. For a moment, the rescue looks possible. Then the Marines give the order early. The executioners bring their blades down before Ace can reach the scaffold, and Marineford becomes hell. Ace screams and throws himself forward. Whitebeard stops thinking about rescue and decides the island itself has to die. The plaza splits, towers collapse, and walls start sliding toward the sea. Garp breaks completely and has to be restrained by Sengoku, while the admirals shift from fighting pirates to keeping the entire headquarters from being swallowed whole. The hidden rulers of the world think they succeeded. Luffy dies before awakening. No Joy Boy, no Dawn. But the aftermath is a curse. Ace survives as a man consumed by revenge. Dragon turns colder than ever. Zoro, Nami, Chopper, and the rest of the Straw Hats watch Luffy's Vivre card burn away on distant islands and lose the light that held them together. The government wanted order. Instead, it created an era of blood. The second theory is much crueler, because Marineford ends, the survivors escape, and then the Straw Hats learn island by island what Luffy was really doing for them. 2 years pass. The crew reunites at Sabaody. They're stronger, quieter, and far more disciplined. Zoro speaks first because somebody has to. Sanji watches everyone more closely. Nami looks at the ship like she's stepping onto a battlefield, not the next leg of a dream. They descend to Fishman Island and quickly learn that power is not the same thing as presence. They can still beat Hody's officers. Zoro cuts them down. Sanji holds the palace corridors. Robin, Frankie, Brook, and Chopper do their jobs. But Luffy was the one who shattered the emotional walls on that island. He was the one reckless enough to befriend Shirahoshi instantly, loud enough to challenge Neptune, and fearless enough to crush centuries of tension under sheer force of will. Without him, Shirahoshi never comes out the same way. Hody's coup turns bloodier. Noah still falls. The Sea Kings eventually save the island because Shirahoshi is Poseidon, but they arrive too late to stop the destruction. Districts are crushed, civilians die, and the Straw Hats leave with no new kingdom behind them, only survivors. Big Mom's shadow still hangs over the island because no one claims it away from her. They enter the New World. In canon, Punk Hazard happens because Luffy cannot ignore a cry for help. Here, the crew hears the distress call and keeps sailing. Zoro sees a trap. Nami argues they cannot rush into every unknown disaster. It sounds reasonable, and that's exactly what makes it so tragic. Caesar keeps experimenting on children. Sad production keeps running. Kaido's Smile Army keeps growing. Kinemon and Momonosuke never connect with the crew. Law loses the exact group he needed to gamble his plan on. By the time Robin's search for poneglyphs and underworld movement drags the crew toward Dressrosa, they're walking into a kingdom that's still fully in Doflamingo's grip. No Law Alliance, no broken factory chain, no momentum already building under the surface. Doflamingo recognizes the opening immediately. He targets Robin first. Sugar is never stopped in time. The toy curse spreads deeper through the country. The dwarves don't rally around Usopp the same way. Frankie gets trapped in endless damage control trying to protect civilians and destroy machinery at once. Zoro keeps cutting through emergency after emergency, but he never reaches the center fast enough. Then the birdcage rises. What follows is a ruthless defeat. Sanji burns himself out holding one side together. Usopp is beaten almost unconscious. Frankie is crippled trying to stop a factory corridor from sealing shut on civilians. Robin is isolated and captured. Zoro tries to force a path through, but between Fujitora's presence, Doflamingo's officers, and the shrinking cage, the crew is broken apart piece by piece. The survivors escape on a damaged Sunny, carrying their wounded, while Robin is handed over to the government. That's the darkest branch, because the crew does keep moving, they do get stronger, they do keep fighting, and the world still proves that losing Luffy means losing the spark that turns strangers into allies and impossible battles into victories. The third theory takes the story in a much stranger direction, and honestly, this one changes the world the most. Marineford still ends with Luffy executed, Whitebeard still falls covering the retreat, Ace survives, Sabo gets his memories back from the news, Dragon goes silent, the Straw Hats bury their captain and promise to meet again. 2 years later, they do meet again, but they don't rush straight into the new world on their own. They meet Ace first. That changes the whole shape of the story. Ace cannot replace Luffy, but he can connect worlds that were never meant to stay separate. Whitebeard's remnants still move under Marco. The Straw Hats still need direction. The Revolutionary Army is becoming more active now that Dragon has lost his son in public. Ace stands in the middle of all that, carrying Whitebeard's name, Luffy's memory, and the guilt of surviving Marineford. Their first stop is Fishman Island. This version goes much better than the tragic second theory, but the island still changes. Jinbei is there from the beginning. Neptune listens because Whitebeard's banner used to protect the kingdom, and Ace carries that history with him. Hody still starts his revolt, and the palace still turns into chaos, but the defense is organized. Zoro and Sanji carve through officers, Jinbei controls the battlefield, and Ace fights through bubble corridors and flooded chambers to keep the royal family alive. Fishman Island survives, but its future stays uncertain. Without Luffy publicly challenging Big Mom and claiming the island, the kingdom stays under Yonko pressure. Then they hear the call from Punk Hazard. This time Chopper is the one who refuses to sail past it. He hears the children, sees the poison, and decides they cannot ignore this. That moment matters more than any big speech, because it proves the crew has finally started carrying a piece of Luffy inside themselves instead of only mourning him. So they land. They meet Law. They save the children. They destroy Caesar's lab. Kinemon and Momonosuke enter the story. The alliance that forms here is colder and more deliberate than canon. Law is still trying to cut Doflamingo off from Kaido, but now he has Ace beside the Straw Hats, which means the plan carries Whitebeard's remnants and all the enemies that name still attracts. That leads straight into Dressrosa, and Dressrosa changes completely. There is no meta-meta tournament because Ace is still alive. Doflamingo cannot bait the world with his fruit, so he uses something more personal. Captured officers from Whitebeard's old territories and underworld routes tied to weapons shipments. Ace walks into the kingdom with Law because Doflamingo has turned pieces of his dead father's world into bargaining chips. Robin and Usopp still collide with the dwarves. Frankie still heads for the factory. Zoro still ends up trying to hold the streets together, but the biggest shift comes when Sabo enters the country. In canon, he came for Ace's fruit. Here, he comes to destroy the weapons network and suddenly finds Ace standing in front of him alive. That reunion changes the arc immediately. Sabo and Ace fight side by side. Law presses Doflamingo directly. Usopp still becomes the miracle who wakes the toys. Robin stays free long enough to protect Rebecca and work with the dwarves. Frankie gets the factory down. Zoro holds the birdcage line with the gladiators. Dressrosa is still brutal, but this time, it's liberated. Now the story rolls toward Wano, and this is where the timeline becomes something canon never could give us. Ace reaches Wano alive. Tama is no longer waiting on a dead promise. Yamato is no longer holding a memory. The samurai meet the man himself, and he walks into Wano carrying grief, Whitebeard's legacy, and the weight of being the brother who lived. Zoro naturally becomes central to the sword side of the country. Ace becomes central to its emotional side, and Robin becomes even more important because Imu's attention now shifts toward the poneglyphs and toward Robin herself, not toward a living Joy Boy candidate. That makes the government bolder. CP0 becomes more aggressive. The elders feel less need to hide because they believe the greatest danger already died at Marineford. So Wano turns into a larger, harsher coalition war. There's no single miracle transformation waiting at the top. Kaido has to be brought down by layers of people. Law and Kid tear the battlefield apart. Yamato buys time from inside the family disaster. Zoro scars Kaido and keeps pushing until his body starts failing. Ace fights King, later reaches the rooftop, and burns hotter than he ever has before because Wano is where his promise, his grief, and his rage finally meet. Victory still comes, but it comes slower, uglier, and with more bodies on the ground. That's why this third theory works so well. Fishman Island survives, but stays politically trapped. Punk Hazard happens because Chopper grows into part of Luffy's role. Dressrosa is saved because Ace, Sabo, Law, and the crew all arrive at once instead of one captain bending the island around himself. Wano becomes the place where the world proves it can still crawl toward the dawn even after the boy who should have brought it is gone. But what if there was a pirate crew so strong that it could single-handedly bring the dawn to the world, or stop it? Well, that's the subject of this other video. Click on this video to see what the strongest One Piece crew ever could look like. Go ahead, click it!